Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Straight Talk from Washington, D.C. live. I'm Ismail Jalilov, and it's 10:05 in the morning here, 19:05, 7:05 p.m. in Baku, Yerevan, and Tbilisi, three capitals of the South Caucasus. Today we're speaking to ANAMA, Deputy Chairman of the Board of the Mine Action Agency of the Republic of Azerbaijan. This is the official name of the organization, but we Azerbaijanis have known it as ANAMA during the 44-day war in 2020. What this organization does, how it informs the people, what we learn from them, and how we regard this organization in Azerbaijan and beyond. These are the topics of our conversation today. As you understand, landmines have come to the fore of the conscience of the people of Azerbaijan, and I thought that the people around the world should be informed and learn why. Why 2 years, almost 2 years, after the end of the war, there are people still dying inside of the Republic of Azerbaijan, and these are not only the military, these are average everyday folk. Two of my colleagues blew up on a landmine on the road inside Azerbaijan in peacetime, traveling and doing their work, covering the after the war reconstruction of the area. They were not doing anything related to the military. They were not doing anything that is not their job. They simply blew up on a landmine and died. It is very sad that very few people talked about it in the West. I cannot help but think, if that had happened in Armenia, if Armenian journalists died of a landmine planted by the Azerbaijani troops inside the Republic of Armenia, what kind of resonance that would create around the world. But all this aside, let's say hello to our guests. We don't often talk to people representing the government or non-governmental organizations in Azerbaijan. Samir Poladov, thank you very much for coming today.
Good evening. It's evening time here in Azerbaijan. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very glad to be here. My name is Samir Poladov. As you said, I'm the Deputy Chairman of the Mine Action Agency of the Republic of Azerbaijan. I'm very glad to be here. I'm very glad to be a guest of your program.
We're very thankful that you stayed up late after work. It's, again, 7 p.m., and you're still at work talking to us. For that, you have my gratitude. And please convey our gratitude to men and women who work in your agency, who make the land safe. They risk their lives, as I understand. I could never do that, what they do, because I don't have the patience. I am not a meticulous or patient or calm and collected person. God is my witness, and so are my viewers. I'll address you as Mr. Poladov. You can call me Ismail. That is totally fine. So, Mr. Poladov, what is your organization? What does it do? And where does it fit on a continuum between the government and non-governmental organization? Is it a semi-government organization, from what I understand?
Thank you for the question. So the Azerbaijan National Mine Action Agency was actually established back in the year 1998 as a joint program between the government of Azerbaijan and the United Nations Development Program. Since then, ANAMA has been very active in mine action throughout the following more than 20 years, including risk education, capacity building, explosive ordnance disposal, and clearance operations. The aim of establishing the agency was to deal with the current, at that time, landmine and unexploded ordnance problem, but also not only that, but also to build a sustainable national mine action capacity that will be capable to deal with the landmine and UXO problem once the occupied at that time territories become liberated, which happened back in the year 2020. In November, the 44 days were over and the large territories become accessible to us. Mainly those territories, as you know, are associated with presence of landmines and wide variety of different types of ammunition. We are the National Mine Action Authority in the country. We implement our own demining operations. We have our own demining teams, but we are also coordinating all the mine action efforts in the country. Besides ANAMA, there are several state entities involved in humanitarian demining, like Ministry of Defense, State Border Service, Ministry of Emergency Situations, as well as several commercial companies, local and international NGOs. So as you can see, there's a big variety of various organizations due to the problem is really huge in the country. So we're involving various stakeholders into this process, and our aim is to coordinate, control, quality assure, plan their operations. We are a state agency. We are a public legal entity. The agency has been rebranded, re-established by the decree of the president back in the year 2021, and it was the status of a state agency was given to our organization, and it is managed by the management board of 4 members, all of whom are being appointed to their positions directly by the president of the country.
Okay, let me figure this out. So if you're a state agency that has been appointed or recreated by the presidential decree, where do you fall when it comes to taking orders? Do you take orders from the Ministry of Defense? Do you take orders from the presidential apparatus? Do you work autonomously? I mean, I'm trying to understand the hierarchy so I would know what questions I should ask you.
The hierarchy is like this. So all the strategic decision making comes from the president administration. However, our day-to-day work, operational planning and allocation of operational resources, and more technical and practical matters are being coordinated and controlled by the Cabinet of Ministers. The work plan that we execute during the year is being approved at the very beginning of each year, is being approved by the Prime Minister himself. It's being also agreed with the President, and all the stakeholders in the country, all the mine action operators, including Ministry of Defense and other ministries who are involved in this operation. They have their own tasks in this annual report, annual work plan, and we strictly follow this annual work plan. So this is formed. This work plan is formed based on the requests that we receive from various entities that are currently active in the liberated territories. Any organization which is planning to conduct any kind of activity in this area before any construction work, the certain polygon where this construction will take place is subject to mine clearance, mine and EXO clearance, which is done, as I said, by various organizations. And when it comes to demining, we are the main entity who control all the mining in the country, including operations of, for example, Ministry of Defense or others.
So, okay, interesting. So let's say if a company XYZ comes to you and says, I want to build a hotel in, let's say, Shusha or some other area. Is your agency able to say, no, you're not going to do it now, wait until we demine the area? Or let's say if Azerbaijani citizens who were pushed out from those regions come and tell you we want to go back to our homes, do you have the right or the power to tell them, no, you have to wait till we conduct demining operations and get rid of the explosive ordnance in the area?
We are executive agency. We are doing what our job is, only demining. We are not in a position to say someone yes or no, you're allowed or you're not allowed. But yes, they in terms of demining, if the certain area which is of an interest to somebody is not cleared, we will then be reporting on this to appropriate authorities, which is in majority of cases is the Council of Ministers, who is responsible for overall coordination of basically of all the activities going on in the country, especially with the when it comes to the liberated territories. It's the highest executive authority in the country. They're responsible for approving or not approving any projects and for all the priority settings. So if this project is really needed for to be implemented in the liberated territories, for example, building whatever, a hotel, as you said, then the Cabinet of Ministers are the ones to decide is this hotel is really needed, and if yes, it's really needed, then the area, the location of this hotel will go to will be entered into this annual work plan, and then it becomes our responsibility to clear it, or responsibility of some other entity. But at the end of the day, anyway, it's our responsibility to control, to provide methodological support to them, and quality assure whatever has been cleared by anybody in the country.
Okay. I feel I need to give the background of the question, because I often hear the people of Azerbaijan complaining that when it comes to, let's say, large agriculture concerns in Azerbaijan, some people are given certain priority and those lands are cleared real fast, and people conduct agricultural work while, you know, refugees cannot return to their homes. Is that true? Would you think, when it comes to priorities, would that be true in your personal experience and what you do?
First of all, I must say that the some areas are easier to clear than others. Specifically, the areas of former residential areas that are currently, majority of them, as you most likely know, are totally destroyed, and there is a lot of construction rubble in the area. We do always find some mines and unexploded ordnances in this in the rubble, and clearance of this kind of areas is much more complicated, let's say, rather than clearance of the flat agricultural lands.
From what I understand, okay, we're going to ask our viewers to write comments and hit like to this broadcast so it reaches a wider audience. And if you did so, thank you very much. Mr. Poladov, let me ask you this. Let's talk about the unexploded ordnance. What state did the retreating Armenian troops leave those areas that were liberated? Were there booby traps, landmines, or other explosive devices planted with a specific aim to injure civilians or military returning to that area? In other words, when you went there for the first time, in what state did you find those areas?
We first of all, I must say that the confirmed minefields extend all along the former line of contact, and they bring significant non-technical survey challenges. The lack of people living in the area, in the areas, represent a loss of the very important, most important sources for our non-technical survey data. while there is a greater clarity with the situation along the former line of contact where the defensive minefields still do exist, it is becoming increasingly clear that there are additional mined areas associated with retreat of Armenian forces through the liberated territories. Our demining and survey teams have been active throughout the area over the past few years and have started to identify some of those additional minefields. The minefield records that we have been provided by Armenian side cover only limited area, and only 25% of them are more or less, let's say, reliable. But it is expected that we will be finding more of this additional mined areas in the future. And I should also mention that more than 50% of the accidents involving civilian population since the end of the war have been recorded outside of the former line of contact, which proves that the mines have been laid indiscriminately in these areas, and also we immediately after the conflict, people wanted to go to their hometowns as quick as possible to restore the emotional, how should I say, contact with the land of their parents, grandparents, of their childhood. And one of the first places they would visit were the cemeteries. And this is where a lot of accidents with anti-personnel mines have been recorded.
So, in other words, retreating troops or whoever it was planted landmines in the cemeteries, so they would explode when people come visit the graves. Do you think that was done maliciously? I'm sorry if I'm asking a naive question. I just want to be clear.
Yes, it's been done on purpose. The intention is to maim and injure or kill civilian population. Of course, what's the purpose of placing mines in the cemetery? Besides that, we find a lot of mines that were placed, as I said, beyond the former line of contact. So there was no defensive purposes of placing those mines, although Armenian side provided, after the international pressure, they provided, as they say, everything what they have. But as I said, only 25% of this is more or less reasonably reliable, but the rest 75% is basically useless because they lack a lot of information, very critical information about location of the minefields, what kind of mines were placed there, etc., etc. So without these critical pieces of information, the minefield records become useless. And but the records provided to us were covering only the areas of the former line of contact. But 50% of the accidents happened beyond the former line, and I'm talking about landmine accidents, happened beyond this line of contact, which proves that there have been more and more mining done, much more mining done by Armenian troops than they claim they did. Besides that, in Lachin several months ago, we have found quite a few booby traps that were placed, so-called surprise mines, that were placed in the village, in the houses, behind the walls, on the entrances to the buildings, behind the doors. Variety, it's available on the internet. And what is the purpose of placing a booby trap just behind an entrance door to the building, definitely killing to kill civilian population.
All right. After the war, I heard a lot of rhetoric coming from Azerbaijan saying that the maps of the landmines, the minefields, were not shared by the Armenians, whether it be the Armenian forces, of the proper Republic of Armenia, or ethnic Armenians who fought the troops in Azerbaijan. My question is, I'm trying to understand, is this part of the conduct of the war to keep clear landmine maps for your own troops, and then when the truce or when the peace agreement is signed, to share them with the opposing side? Is that the international practice? Is that the normal practice? Because Armenians are claiming that those maps do not exist, that the landmines were laid haphazardly without any, not systematically, by various troops and various groups of, troops, whatever, it's not my purview. I'm not a military person. But they're saying that, first of all, these maps don't exist. And even if they do exist, it's a haphazard process. Do you believe that?
I think that at least for their own defensive positions, for their own defensive mine lines, they must have precise minefield records. Just to give you an idea of the size of the former line of contact, it is more than 250 kilometers long and up to 7 kilometers wide. So it's quite a huge area that is currently contaminated, heavily contaminated by landmines. And knowing exactly where inside of this former line of contact the Armenian military placed mine lines, the defensive mine lines, would extremely speed up our work. Currently, we only know some of the locations due to the bad quality of those minefield records. We only know some. As I said, only 1/4 is more or less reliable. So majority of the minefields are their locations, their exact precise location. Well, because when it comes to demining, it's either exact or if it's not so, if it's not perfectly prepared, then you still need to deploy a lot of resources to an area to identify the location of minefield. But once you have a clear and detailed minefield record with geographic information and with all the other detailed information in it, then you will be able to identify a minefield fairly quickly on the ground, which will help you to save a lot of valuable and limited resources and overcome the problem much quicker. So I think that we have been doing this for many years. I'm involved in this mine action since 1999. I have personally visited many countries suffering from landmine problem and post-conflict situations, and I have witnessed personally in many other countries how that the minefield maps have been, as you exactly mentioned. Yes, it is a normal practice, international practice, to hand over after the conflict, to hand over the whatever information you have in your hands, and this becomes really helpful for organizations like our organization. We don't see this in our country, unfortunately. Yes, they claim that they give certain amount of minefields and this minefield records, and this is the only records that they have. But realistically, I think for their own security purposes of their own military, they must have better quality records, which we never saw.
So in other words, to make sure that their own people do not blow up on their own mines, they should have better record keeping, and you doubt the sincerity. Has it happened that the more pressure Azerbaijan has applied, the more minefield maps made it out? I mean, is there a precedent?
This happened only on several occasions, and if I'm not mistaken, the last time we received some information was more than 1 year ago. Before, only maybe 2-3 times we have received some information from them, but nothing after, no.
You talked about limited resources. I'm kind of curious. What is your annual budget? I'm sure as a state agency, this is written somewhere that the public can access. What is your annual budget? Does the government, does the state provide you with enough tools and enough funding to do your job? And how much does it cost the Azerbaijani taxpayers to demine the lands in 1 year, let's say?
Well, at this stage, the costs of the mining are fairly high. And the reason for that is because we are investing a lot of money in the capital equipment. So the capital expenses are extremely high at the moment.
Can we put a number on it?
I don't want to say any wrong numbers because I'm not a finance guy in this organization. Okay. I'm purely operational person, so don't want really to put some numbers on this. But as you say, it's most likely available information in the public sources. At this stage, we are scaling up our operations, our operational resources. We're recruiting and training more and more demining teams, procuring more equipment, demining machines, detectors, etc., etc. So our costs at this stage are quite high, but once the scaling up and the increase of the operational resources will be over, then the costs will drop down because there will be no capital expenses. But yes, at this stage they are high. But also I should mention that we are still remain significantly underfunded by the international community. We are raising our voice in many international platforms, and we do have some international donors, and we are thankful to all of them for their support, for their valuable support. However, we are underfunded and require more support from international donor institutions.
So I'm just curious, because Azerbaijan is a fairly rich state. And when you go to international, and you being a state agency, when you go to international donors, do you face skepticism? Why don't they fund you? Because you don't make a compelling case? Because you think they're prejudiced? Because they don't think that the landmine problem is serious? Or because they say you should go and ask your own government?
I think as I said, we do have donors, but we think that they are not enough. So our major donors are EU, government of United States, government of UK, France, and United Nations, various institutions of United Nations. But the problem also is huge in the country. I mean, the extent of the landmine contamination is still not fully known in the country, and we can't even say exactly how much, how long it's going to take, and how much exactly it's going to cost. Yes, we do have funding from the state budget. This is why we are able to expand our operations to keep pace with the ongoing large-scale reconstruction and rehabilitation. But we have to understand that the task from the government is the landmine clearance is only the first stage, first step in the reconstruction and rehabilitation of the liberated territories. It's just about providing safety for safe work and living, but there's a huge task to rebuild all these destroyed villages and towns in Karabakh area, and in this regard, in this sense, the task of other institutions is also is huge. So
Okay.
it's all the combination of various projects which must all run simultaneously, and it's not easy thing to do.
Okay. Könül S was asking which countries are providing support for Azerbaijan in demining. I believe you answered that question. If there is, you mentioned the governments of the EU, the United States. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that list?
Yeah, EU, United States, government of United Kingdom, government of France, government of Hungary, United Nations Development Program, UNICEF, UNHCR. I think that's probably it. I might be wrong, so I don't want to offend anyone maybe who's listening, but yes, mostly I think I've covered the list. That's
Personally, I'm very surprised to hear that the government of France is helping your organization in demining, because from what I understand, currently relations with France are kind of strained. All right, let me read a comment from Anik James Krikorian. This is my colleague, and we recently invited him on our program. He said, I photographed an Azerbaijani cemetery between Khojalı and close to the outskirts of Aghdam sometime in the 2000s, and was warned by Karabakh Armenians not to enter it as it was mined. So that's true. This is a comment that is in response to what you said about mining cemeteries, which honestly is beyond me, but it's not about what I think. His question to you is, Mr. Poladov has already mentioned UXO, unexploded ordnance, and while landmines are the main focus, it is worth asking him to explain to your viewers what UXO is, and especially the danger faced by the kids. I believe he goes to say that ANAMA is involved in raising awareness among children as to, what unexploded ordnance is and what not to touch. It is hard for me to believe that I live in the world where children are being targeted specifically for maiming or killing, especially by the troops. Can we talk about this? What is UXO, and do they really target children?
Well, mines and UXOs. UXO, as you said, stands for the unexploded ordnance, which means that any type of ordnance that has been fired but didn't detonate when it landed, and it stays on the soil, on the ground for many years. It has an explosive content. It is in a dangerous state, become desensitized due to the after it hit the ground, and the mines and UXOs, they don't care who we are. Are we adults? Are we males or females or children? If you don't know how to deal with this device, you just don't touch it. And this is the main message in our risk education campaigns. Yes, we do a lot of risk education for the affected communities who live next to the close to the contaminated territories. We have also, there were some families also returned to their home village in Zangilan, Ağalı, Zangilan Ağalı village, so-called smart village, that is also located in the liberated territories. But when we go to these areas, first thing we always have to remember is don't go into the uncleared areas. There are certain indicators of the contaminated areas. This is what we train people. If you see this kind of indicators, don't enter these areas. Basically, the best is only enter the areas, access the areas who they know exactly that have been cleared in the past. And if they are not sure, they just don't go. And another thing, what we train them is, if they somehow ended up in the dangerous area and they realize that they are in the middle of the minefield, what to do, how to behave. First thing is, of course, don't move, stay, call for help, and we will come and recover you. And this kind of situations happened in the past with us. Luckily, we were able to evacuate these people from the dangerous areas safely.
You know, I can't help but remember the recent incident where villagers walked into a minefield. I'm sorry, I keep confusing the terms. They walked into a minefield, and then the military came to their rescue, and there were casualties both among the villagers and the peasants, basically people working the fields, and the military. Can we talk about this? First of all, what is the number of casualties? Let me relate to you the complaint that I received from my friends and colleagues in the Azerbaijani civil society. When international organizations are asking us for the numbers of the killed and dead and maimed and injured, we're often having difficulty providing those numbers, because those numbers, for some strange reason, are not openly given to the members of the civil society. So there is nothing that we then can forward to international organizations. In other words, another complaint that I hear is that the numbers that are given, they don't distinguish between civilians and the military. As you understand, the international human rights organizations are primarily interested in the number of the civilians who die or get injured. Is there any clarity? Maybe we're asking the wrong people. Maybe we're forming our questions differently. Can you describe where can I, as a journalist, who can I ask for the numbers of the civilians and the military casualties of the landmines? So when I am asked, I would have numbers ready to pass along.
We keep records of all accidents in our organization, and this information is actually, as far as I know, is publicly available. There is no secret in this, and we don't hide this information. There's no purpose for that. And I can tell you...
Okay, not to catch you on your word, but what is the numbers? I mean, do you have something in front of you right now?
Yes. 282 people become victims of landmines. 46 of them have been killed, and the rest were severely injured. So 282. And we also have numbers of civilian and military personnel. When it comes to, it is important to note here that when we talk about military people injured or killed by landmines, these statistics that I've just mentioned, 282 people, this is only after the November 2020, after the 44 days war. So it is not, it's not covering, this statistic is not covering the people who were maimed by landmines during the armed conflict. Besides,
okay. Yes, please.
Total number of the landmine victims registered in our central database here in ANAMA is more than 3,300. This is from the First Karabakh War, including the war, people who injured during the war, and including the latest period of the since November 2020. So it's more than 3,300 people registered in our database.
Okay. Thank you for providing that information, because it truly helps those of us who are asked. The reason I'm asking this is because the other side is often downplaying the issue. I've heard everything from outright denials that mine laying has happened, to assertions that the maps were exchanged. On the other hand, I hear that this really doesn't happen, and it's an invention of the Azerbaijani propaganda. Twitter and social media are quite weird places. You hear all kinds of things every day. So let me ask you this. What kind of proof does Azerbaijan have? Let me read a comment here. There was news that landmines were found in Sarıbaba Peak in 2022, and they were planted after the Second Karabakh War. How will Azerbaijan prove it, and to which organizations did Azerbaijan apply? In other words, how does Azerbaijan prove that these landmines have been laid after the hostilities were over, after the ceasefire, after the document was signed? Do you think when you send this proof, do you think it is heard? Do you feel that the Azerbaijani side is being heard?
As you said, in Lachin district, we have found several hundred landmines, several thousand landmines that were placed after the war. The reason why we know what were placed after the war is that the mines have distinguished marking, or each mine has a distinguished marking on it. So we know exactly that this particular landmine is produced in Armenia or is produced in somewhere else. These
can they be
landmines,
faked? I'm sorry, pardon me. Can those markings be faked?
Not, I think, not several thousand of them. No.
Okay.
Unrealistic. And they have a distinguished marking on each of the mine that says which says the year of production of this landmine. So those landmines that were discovered in the Lachin district, they have marking of 2000 production year 2021, which is after November 2020. So this is a fact, cannot be ignored, and we have reported this. Of course, all this information is also publicly available, and I hope that we will be heard, yes, by the international community, that the landmines were placed after the signature of trilateral agreement.
I'm kind of curious when you go and when you tell people, international organizations. I've actually seen pictures presented to the court in The Hague. Is there a result is there a decision, by the way, on that? I have seen those pictures presented to the court in The Hague with those markings you're talking about. Actually, the Azerbaijani side has presented proof that showing the exact location of the plant, of the factory where those landmines are produced in Armenia. Was there any decision? Was there any feedback? What do you hear back when you tell people that these are the landmines and here's a proof that they were laid after the war, showing the hostile intent of Armenia? What do you hear back normally?
Yes, we have. You are right. We have provided most of this information. We have provided pictures of landmines, a lot of pictures of landmines with exact location where they have been found, and the location of the factory in Armenia is also known. It's a known fact that it is placed there, but I think the process is ongoing at this stage, still not over, but I'm not really sure what was the end result of it. As far as I know, it's still ongoing. So let's hope that our voice will be heard, and because this is the fact that cannot be ignored.
Okay. I cannot help but wonder, please help me figure this out. From what I understand, there were no instances of the Russian so-called peacekeeping force encountering Armenian laid landmines, blowing up on them, or having casualties, suffering casualties from the Armenian landmines. How does it happen? Do you think they know exactly where the landmines are? Are they acting more cautiously? If those maps don't exist, how is it that the Russian troops stationed temporarily in Azerbaijan know exactly where not to go?
I think people who placed mines know where they placed those mines, know exactly where they placed those mines, and if these people are willing to share this information with somebody, they're just sharing this information. And if they're not willing to share this information, they simply don't share this information. I hope I answered your question.
No, you did not. Okay. Let me ask you this other question. Are you being helped by Russians at all? Are Russian peacekeeping forces, shall we call them that, being helpful in any way to the Azerbaijani side?
When it comes to demining,
Right.
Our areas of responsibility, let's say, are different. So we are not clearing at this stage any areas that are under temporary control of the Russian peacekeepers. Our operations are mainly focused on the key infrastructure projects, agricultural lands, whatever land that is needed to somebody right now. But the areas that are controlled by Russian peacekeepers at this stage, we are not doing any demining in these areas at this stage.
Okay, VM is saying, I will help to answer my own questions. As per wiki, donors of the agency are government of Azerbaijan, $2,400,000, and UNDP, 160,000. The last number is laughable. This is what our viewer is saying, and I don't know to what extent this is true, but this is at least what they're saying in terms of the numbers. Speaking of numbers, can we find out how many people work for you? How many people are engaged in demining operations right now? I'm not talking about the staff. I'm talking about the people that I wanted to thank from the very beginning. People, men and women in the field, walking on landmines, basically, and trying to make life safe for the people. How many of those do you have?
Staff, we have Purely operational staff is around 1.7 thousand operational staff that is working in the mining operation. Besides that, we are also using the very useful mine detection dogs, our friends. We have 88 mine detection dogs involved throughout the entire territory of Karabakh, and 57 demining machines. But we are planning to expand our operational capacities, including human resources. We are training, constantly recruiting and training new deminers. So every 2 months we train and make operational from 80 to 100 people. So our numbers are increasing on a constant basis. By the end of this year, we're planning to become only our organization, as we plan to become about 2,500 people just in Mine Action Agency of the Republic of Azerbaijan. And majority of these people are purely field staff.
I want to ask about the rates of attrition. Do many of these people get injured and die on the job? Do you have that kind of statistic among your own operational staff?
Our job, as you can understand, is very dangerous. Yes. we did have some accidents in the past, but not many, luckily not many, just a few people. But I should knock the door. We don't have any accidents for the last quite a long time. So it's the casualty rate within the organizations and our and other organizations is really low, considering comparing to the threat level that we face on a daily basis. And this is due to the high level of technically professional training that we provide to our staff.
Does it take long for somebody, let's say somebody like me, not me, because I would probably make the worst possible candidate, but when somebody walks through the door, how long does it take to train a person, and how much resources does it take to train a layperson to become a professional in your field? How much time, how much money, how much effort?
The standard training for a manual deminer lasts 6 weeks of intensive practical and theoretical training. However, for him to become a professional deminer, it requires several years. So at first, we would put people to a little bit easier areas and use them in the easier areas. And after several months, they will go from easy to more and more complicated and more dangerous, highly contaminated areas, and but never in the beginning, because these people, they need time to get more experience in the field.
So easy areas, as you mentioned, are flat lands, agricultural lands, but we're talking about Karabakh. There's not much of that, right? What is the easy area and what is the difficult area?
Well, the easier area is the area that has very unlikely to have, highly densely placed landmines. Okay. And the difficult areas is where we know for sure that these areas are heavily contaminated. The density of mines placed in the area is high. So these kind of areas we will be using more experienced teams, and the others which maybe have no mines but have contamination with unexploded ordnances. This is a little bit easier task. When I say easy, it's easier. It doesn't mean it's 100% easy, but it's easier than the minefield. So clearance of an ordnance, because most of the time the unexploded ordnance can be visually verified. You can see it with your own eyes. Whereas when it comes to the mines, they are normally placed under the surface, covered by soil, and you cannot see them with your own eyes. And they are designed to kill a person when a person touches the mine or steps on it, whereas unexploded ordnance is kind of not designed for this, and it can be easier verified and easier to deal with.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned dogs, and it brought a smile on my face. Tohrul Iskenderli is asking, which method is the most effective in finding mines? Manual, dogs, special equipment, etc. I believe people are walking with the looped devices. I've seen it done here in the United States. So what would be the most effective way, or does it change with the terrain based on, whether you're in the flatlands or maybe mountainous areas? And the role of dogs, please.
There's no such just a definition that this tool is the most effective or is more effective than the other tool, or this is a certain tool is the most effective for clearance of landmines. It all depends on the terrain. It all depends on the type of contamination in the land. It all depends on the type of soil in the land, and there are many criteria to come up with a solution which tool, which equipment, or which tool shall be used to clear the certain area. When it comes to the mine detection dogs are extremely effective in rapid reduction of the suspected area. They can produce a lot of clear square meters during the day, but their limitation is that they are not capable, for example, to pinpoint every individual mine in a mine line. Let's say they are very good to find the mined area, to identify the mined area within the larger area, to identify the real threat inside of this area. They're an effective tool for that. But once the minefield is identified, the mine line is identified, then the manual demining method is most effective and most safe, the safest way to do clearance.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I've asked for 1 hour, and we're coming up on 1 hour of broadcast. Let me ask you this at the very end of our interview. You will probably be watched by the audience that does not know much about the landmine issue in Azerbaijan, the audience that is watching you from the West or around the world, outside of Azerbaijan. My question is, if there were 1 or 2 messages, most important things that you wanted people to know about the issue of the landmines in Azerbaijan, what would that be? What would your message be? And do you think that the people are willing to listen when it comes to the issue of landmines? Because honestly, I personally have not seen much coverage. I have not even seen the mentioning of the landmines in reputable Western media organizations. Maybe I was looking in the wrong place. It's quite possible. But what is being done wrong that the people in the West don't know that civilians are dying from landmines that are laid after the so-called truce, peace agreement, not peace agreement, but the signing of the document with Armenia? What is wrong? What do you think the Azerbaijani side is doing wrong?
I don't think we're doing anything wrong, honestly. we are talking very loud about our landmine problem, but mainly on the platforms that are focused on the landmine mine action activities. What I think can be done is we have to maybe raise the awareness, as you say, of the international community about the threat of the landmines in Azerbaijan. Maybe it's not covered very well in the international media, but in our country, everybody know about landmines, about the situation in the liberated territories, about the dangers that these landmines cause. We should be a little bit more active in terms of international media coverage. If you say it's not so well covered, so maybe this is what we should do.
So let me clarify this. When international media, let's say the New York Times or the Washington Post or the CNN or the BBCs of the world, come to you, to ANAMA, and ask you to provide information or ask you to take them to the areas that are being cleared from the landmines so they would see everything with their own eyes. You know, we journalists don't believe anybody. We want to see it. So if they came to you, would that be an easy process to accompany your operatives, you know, to the field?
We have a lot of journalists visiting liberated territories, visiting our office here. I give a lot of interviews, maybe on a weekly basis, several every week, and so does my other colleagues. And accessing and visiting the territories, visiting our operations in the field is absolutely no problem. There's absolutely no problem with this. We welcome all of them here in Azerbaijan, and we are very keen to demonstrate our work to anybody who is interested to see it.
You know, Mr. Poladov, one day I'm going to knock on your door and come to your office and ask you to take me to one of those fields and show me so I could see everything, maybe not touch everything, but see everything with my own eyes. Thank you very much for your time today. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much. Please do anytime you want. And yes, no, don't touch, just see and listen. And thank you very much for having me. Thank you very much for your interesting questions. I was glad to be part of your show today.
Let's hope we do this again sometime soon. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention. Before this broadcast is over, I would ask you once again to hit the like button and share our content if you find it interesting. We will not only post, well, it's actually already on our website, on our YouTube page. Here is my technical mind again. And we will publish some snippets of this information on our Telegram channel, on our Instagram, and on our TikTok channel. I wanted to draw your attention to the fact that we, with our meager resources, are trying to expand and turn this little effort of ours into a multi-platform media giant. Well, dreams, hopes and dreams die last, right? So we're hoping that you will help us in promoting this content, in publishing it, in tweeting. Do whatever you want. Send it with postal pigeons. I don't care. As long as you amplify our message, and we truly do hope that our message is of truth and of peace. And I invite you to continue this conversation in the comments. I read every comment carefully. I might not always react, but you can be absolutely certain that I've read it. And I do appreciate your time once again. From Washington, D.C., I'm Ismail Jalilov. Before I bid goodbye, tomorrow we're going to have a journalist, a Crimean Tatar journalist, Gülsüm Halilova, and we'll be speaking in Turkish. At least she will be speaking in Turkish, and I'm going to be doing my best. This will be our fourth broadcast this week, and it'll be the fourth language in which we broadcast. We're going to be talking about the Russian propaganda and how it wins the hearts and minds in the war against Ukraine. And of course, we're going to be looking at the reaction in the Turkish society, how susceptible Turkey is to the Russian propaganda. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your time. Bye-bye.